I'd like to call the planning commission for the town of Chincoteague to order. I ask you all to stand for the invocation and the pledge of allegiance. Heavenly Father, we ask your guidance again this evening as we address those issues that we feel will be most supportive for our town of Chincoteague. We'd also like to ask your blessings on those families who are still suffering from the events of 9/11. Take care of those families. Take care of those who are suffering even today as a result of being the first on the spot to help out those who are in trouble. We ask you to take care of them, bless them, and give them the peace that they deserve. All these things we ask in Jesus' precious name. Thank you. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I don't believe we have any public participation this evening, so we'll move right on to the agenda review and disclosures. Is there any changes to the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as is.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the first order on our agenda is approval of the June 13th, 2023 regular meeting minutes. And copies were provided to everyone. Any corrections or additions?
Make a motion to approve the minutes as is.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And second item on our agenda is discussion of the houseboats. Can I take it? Well, I'm not gonna guess it, but is that the houseboats down at the marina?
Well, not necessarily them, but that's the precedent's kind of set, so we want to try, we have nothing in our ordinance for houseboats, so we need to get something there where they can go, what we want to have. You know, right now they can really go in assisting marinas, you know. That's pulled up. We do have some assisting marinas that we still have, probably like the Anchor, maybe behind Captain, or the other motel by Captain Fish's. Probably got maybe John Shields or assistant marinas that you could probably have the same type of boat go into. You still got all the private piers that, you know, we don't want to prolong the private piers going down the Main Street or whatever. So we need some type of wording in our ordinance to some type of regulations on it.
Now, what kind of jurisdiction do we have on the water?
Yeah, that's the.
Well, we don't have
maritime.
the jurisdiction on the water, but I think we put in there says that it can't be rented or something like that. I mean, we can't stop nobody from, and we wouldn't want to, from having a boat come up and park to the dock, because the rest would be able to do it. Now, if they pull up there and they want to rent it, I think that's a different scenario that we need to look at.
Is there any difference between wanting to rent a houseboat or wanting to rent an outboard?
Yes,
Yes.
you sleep on it.
You're sleeping on
You bathe on it.
Is that the crux of it?
We regulate motels by right, hotels, we regulate cottages, we regulate.
Are there any examples from other communities?
I got one I'm looking at from Key West at a lot of them, so I'm trying to get some of them printed off the road meter code. So I got a couple more websites that some of the other building officials were going to send me that they had in their jurisdiction. So Key West has got 3 or 4 of them in their different small towns. So I'm trying to get some of that, so I can put something together for you on it.
I know when we were out west, Lake Mead, they have houseboats that are available. There's various state parks that have huge lakes and so forth that have houseboats available for rental.
A town that has permanent houseboats is Sausalito, California.
Yes, I
They've
see
had
that
it
on
for
the
a long
website.
time.
Seattle has a very large community of houseboats in their Puget Sound there, when we were out there. But they are very, I mean, they're homes.
So I got one kind of sample that says, The intents are to bring floating homes within the scope of regulatory scheme applicable to land-based dwellings.
Is there any difference between those that are motorized and those that are not?
Not really.
Because the ones that are at the marina do not have motors on them.
I think the only thing with difference on how they're licensed, I guess.
How the state licenses?
Yes,
Or
not a state license.
they don't require a marine license, right?
No, all they call for the Coast Guard is a hall identification number and you go through the inspection process, which is very limited, what I'm understanding, Friday night. They basically they apply through the Coast Guard and get a bulk permit, give them the design criteria, how you're gonna build them, and they do like the industrialized building stuff, they'll inspect 1 out of every 10 or something like that they're doing, and this is how they're done in the plant, and then kind of plant manager signs off on them saying this is how they are constructed.
As an individual, if you purchase one, would it be considered personal property? The same as a boat?
Just like a vessel.
And the town would tax it as such?
Yes.
We have something to that.
The,
I'm just, you know,
the houseboats that are at the Bluefin Marina right now, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, they all are, did they get DGAF numbers?
No,
They did not.
they all got is hall identification numbers from the Coast Guard.
We still tax them as personal property.
individually.
Yeah, and what Mark and I have been looking at, Mark's done a considerable amount of work on it, is if you look at opportunities to replicate that development, and it is a development, there's 25 of them.
Yes, 25.
There are all kinds of opportunities around this island, a lot of them on South Main Street, to replicate that environment. So what we're looking at is to get the planning commission to start thinking about where the replication of that development might be appropriate in our zoning.
But is that, by changing the zoning, is that gonna mess somebody up if they want to have their houseboat tied to their dock, or
No,
their houseboat to their dock?
Well, you simply say if you're going to do it commercially, or if you're going to rent these units. We regulate rental houses. We have, Mark, you have to get a business license, you also have to provide parking, and you have to submit an application, which Mark goes to the health department and checks out, make sure that you have adequate sewage for what you want to rent.
Mhm.
So, by extension, if you're going to build or buy one of these things and rent it, you should have to jump through a few hoops as well, because we're not just gonna let you set up shop and operate a business without coming to the town first and obtaining a business license and going through the same motions that everybody else at Rents has to do.
Mhm.
And can we do regulations and maybe special use permit or something like that?
Yeah, I think we
I mean, this way South Main Street's not lined up with them.
Right.
I think special use permit probably is the first thing we should consider versus a conditional use. Special use, that way it has to be reviewed.
Well, a conditional use would go before this plan commission, then to the council. A special use permit would only go through the BCA.
Or some conditional use then, I guess. I don't know, we got a lot of fighting about, but.
And that's just for the commercial, the conditional use. If somebody wants to tie a boat to the
Yeah,
dock.
well, tying a boat, like I said earlier, I mean, if
Yeah,
it's
there's
licensed
not really a whole
boat,
lot you can do about
there's
that.
not a lot to do. If you
Yeah, yeah,
can park a boat
okay.
to the dock
Mhm.
and park it, I mean, you're just mooring your vessel.
Mhm.
Now, if you got it parked there for 6 months and you got electric hooked to it and sewage and renting it out, then that's a different story.
Which most vessels don't last very long if you moor them to the docks out on Main Street. All it takes is in
No.
front, or it takes one thunderstorm to come through, and,
Everybody has 2 or 3.
yeah, I've seen a lot of boats.
But there are some areas where this would work pretty good at too, that are low impact and tides and things that could work. So,
One thought we had was.
not saying it's gonna happen, but I think we need to be proactive and get something in place in case it does.
I'd like to see some examples of what other communities may have.
Okay.
Yeah. That's all I
I
like.
mean, it's not a new world we're walking into, this is something that's
Right.
been around for a
And
while.
most everything we're gonna see, all that's gonna be majority along, finger piers and in boat basins is what I've been seeing.
One of the ideas we had was to not permit them by right unless you're in an existing licensed marina. If you have a marina, which is what was done in Bluefin, it was an existing marina, then it would be more appropriate than if you,
Create a new marina to do it.
or if you're just mooring them alongside a pier, which you happen to own in a residential district.
That would be the first requirement
Right.
that would probably be appropriate,
A marina comes necessarily with the proper parking,
right?
and it's.
Facilities.
Yes, its intent is to be commercial by nature, so.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That would apply to our own harbor and the area adjacent to the,
Our own harbor
Bridge.
would not allow these because it specifically doesn't allow people to sleep on their vessels down there.
okay. At the moment, are there any other established marinas other than Sunset Bay?
Probably John Shields, I guess. Is that
Don
good?
Shields, Anchor Inn has a marina. Anchor Inn Hotel's
That's,
been there
that's,
since I was
that's
born.
considered a marina.
Marina Bay has a marina. Sunset Bay has a marina.
But Sunset Bay has the biggest probably.
They're the ones I can think of off the top of my head.
There's at least 3 or 4. No, I think it's probably appropriate. This is a good time to start thinking about it before next year. Let's see. And,
Well, that permit came to us, what, in January?
Yes.
January?
Yes.
So the planning started probably last year about this time, because we saw prints in the office about December, January last year for that stuff.
And then they're actually closed right now, aren't they?
Yes,
Thought so.
for the season.
they have more issues to resolve.
They got some things to work through, with the health department and, a few things with the tank.
So like a permit type deal, or?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to see what you come up with from the, I guess from Florida. You're talking about Key West, is that?
Yeah, Key West has got some, I had to print up a copy of your, this is running, take a glance, is this one of, source, one of all.
I would be surprised, the West Coast, there's probably some
You Google them, I mean, there's,
examples there too.
yeah, there's a lot of them comes up on these lakes and different parts of lakes and things like that. They got whole
That's what I mean.
communities on lake.
I know Tahoe and Meade.
Right.
And what do you Google, just houseboats?
Yeah, floating cottages, houseboats,
Houseboat communities.
houseboat communities. You know, you just go, Key West, Port of Key West, and there's another little town in Key West that's got them. Port of Key West, they were the most helpful, giving me information. So Key West is a port authority to regulate theirs, part of theirs.
I would think any kind of community like this with houseboats would have to be
Right.
in an area that would be exposed to the elements.
But
I
you
mean,
read,
just putting them on docks is gonna be,
or this one at Key West, they don't have a whole lot in there, so when you
Yeah.
read it, it does, you know,
yeah,
can't be occupied, not unless they got a certificate of occupancy, you know,
uh-huh.
certain square footage, sanitation.
I bet like inspections when you do something like that, like with,
Well,
I mean,
inspections are
anything
done
on-
because if the houseboat, as long as it meets that criteria,
Mhm.
the only thing we can really do is like the gangways, you know, 5-foot gangways, places for egress, for emergency, fire
Mhm.
extinguishers, sewage connection, electrical connection, and things like that. Everything else is just, whether you're talking about houseboat, whether you're talking
Yes.
about yacht or whatever, that's the
Mhm.
same, criteria on that.
Gotcha.
You know, it'd be better if you had more separation, so if you had like 5 or 6 foot gangways to put them fall apart for as fire separation, but I don't know if we can really,
Mhm.
I guess we put an ordinance to do that, I don't, you know.
Now, do the ones in, that they have in the old Captain Bob's Marina, do they have firewalls? How's
Do
that
not.
done? Do not.
No.
That's the thing that kind of worries me.
Yeah,
with it.
you know,
One thing that Mark was successful at doing there from the start, and that was back in December when we first started talking to the engineer, is to explain to them that these are vessels and not houses, and they, as such, need to have non-permanent connections for water, sewer, and electric. So
Mhm.
you'll see they have dock plugs like a boat, they have rubber hoses for water, and they have sewage, which has to be connected every day and actually pumped out every day and then disconnected.
so you look down the gangway, they'll have it, they got a vacuum sewage pipe runs down, and then you'll see a little cart down there with yellow hose on it, and that hooks to the vessel, and then hooks to the gangway.
Okay.
Do they go right into the facility out at the campgrounds, or do they have a holding tank there?
It goes into the vacuum holding tank, I think then gets pumped to the facility.
Then they get pumped down.
Yeah. But the good thing about vacuum system is less leaks because you're pulling out the boat, in the boat, everything, you know, in the vacuum, so pulls through. If you had a hard hook line or something like that, if you got a leak, you got the contents in the line.
We would be in conflict with anything with the Coast Guard relevant to their requirements, right? So,
Yeah, and then Coast Guard don't have a whole lot to.
other than it's a vehicle, or it's a
And then
vessel,
Ring
and
Bill
has
Coast gives you so much single gangways and stuff like that, and
life
that's kind of
jackets
what you
and
got
such.
going.
We were actually looking for more regulation from the Coast Guard and didn't. get
Yeah, I
it.
would,
So-
Yeah.
So it wouldn't contradict anything with marine resources. in any way.
No, well, you gotta look at, a lot of that's what's gonna fall into, if it's a basin, the state is not over state waters, it's in,
Yeah, it's in private,
it's in private waters.
yeah.
You know, if something's over state waters, they'd have to give you approval for it. But anything that's in a private basin, then it's not in their jurisdiction.
so
Not unless you got some type of grass or marsh that you're destroying when you put your, float docks in or something, but other than that, you know, not that you got full dredge permit to dredge it or something like that, you wouldn't really, we would contact them, but pretty sure we get a, NP, no permit requirement on it.
But the other locations that we spoke of are not basins. They're
No,
subject,
but they're still back far enough, so they could be man-made, so they still could be
They
on
could be.
private ground.
we would have to bulkhead areas to do that.
I don't think you have to bulkhead it.
They're, for instance, Sunset Bay, aren't they, that's all current flows through there. There's no, where those boats are
I
moored.
don't think there's no bulkhead in them. That's
There's no
certain
bulkhead,
places
so
behind
it's-
that
it's
Sunset
It's
Bay.
just moorings, right?
It's, that's bulkheads. Bulkheads up inside the marina and all the way around the whole structure,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Right. There's no breakwater on the front of it.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
It's all open to the channel, but both sides and the back is bulkhead.
Okay.
But it would be, I mean, these, I foresee someone could buy 2 or 3 vessels
Yeah,
put them in the water, tie them to the pier, advertise them on Airbnb, rent them for the summer, and either move them to a safer location for the winter, or pull them for the winter.
yeah.
And, you know, and that's a seasonal thing. Every summer they go in, every winter they come out.
Sounds like a good idea, but we don't need them all up and down Main Street, you know.
It's bad enough with the numbers of piers that we've got up and down the, but
Yeah.
I think definitely we have to address this at our next meeting. I think all of us, if we can go home and check on our own also.
Well, I'll try to get some
Sorry.
copies of some sample ordinances,
Yeah.
and what the other, then I'll go in and put an email to you before the meeting, so you
If
have
you
a chance to
would.
review.
Yeah. Give us as much information
Yeah.
in a timely way. manner. Okay, you're on again, feather flags. Item number 3, feather flags. I have, I went through as much as I could on signs, workshops, so forth and so on, and all the applications that we've addressed over signs. And I was under the understanding that there was a limit of 2 per business,
2 signs,
2 signs. There's a height limit,
on the signs, 12
there's a
foot,
square
10
footage
10 foot
limit,
road, 64 square feet.
there's a, what content limits on them. And I guess the issue I'm gonna raise then is the stability of them, permanence and temporary. You know, the issue you're facing now is the fact that
Well,
they're
since
putting
the
them up
letter
when
was
you're
in
not
May,
around.
we probably got 95% of people are compliance. We still got a few that's still putting stuff out and said, well, it's not a feather flag, it's a permanent flag, but we still don't have a definition of a permanent flag or a flagpole, you know. And then I think when ordinance was kind of drafted, feather flags really weren't a thing. I think they come back afterwards, so I think, you know, do we want flooded heights just for, can't have them at all? I mean,
If you've warned them not to, do we have the ability to, is that a misdemeanor if they do it anyway, or do we have any teeth in our ordinance?
I don't know how ordinance is written if we really do, that's what I'm trying to figure out, because it says flags, you know, there's no really definitions on them.
So we're not treating them like regular flags.
No.
I mean, you know, are they considered a flag? What are they really considered? You know, flag can be advertisement,
Right,
it can be
flag,
advertisement.
flag, right,
I mean, you see a lot of them in beach towns.
yeah.
Anytime I go through the Outer Banks, you see a lot of those advertising restaurants, specials,
So
and
you could
stuff
have
like that.
175, they'd raise shandy, you can't 6 of them.
Yeah. Well, we would only allow 2, right?
Yes,
And it's gotta be how far back from the road?
10 feet.
10 feet.
Well, that's for signs, they don't really address
Yeah.
flags.
I mean-
All flag says it's got to be mounted to a building or to a permanent flagpole.
I think if we,
So that's the same for our banner as well.
Well, a banner requires permit, and they're only up for, twice a year, or no more than 14 days.
Special occasion.
14 days.
I think what Mark and I have talked about, just to make it cleaner and easier and more understandable for everyone, is just to disallow feather flags. Just right, they're prohibited. Then you don't have to worry about what is a permanent flagpole and what's not a permanent flagpole, and well, my feather flag is under the 15 square feet, and mine doesn't contain a commercial message, like, you know, if you just disallow feather flags, then we're good to go. It's simple, it's clean, and it's understandable.
I mean, you could put the same message out there with a regular flag on
It's not as though there isn't enough signage out there. It's not as though there isn't the opportunity to put signage out there for any business. What a feather flag's gonna do,
Well,
I can't comprehend, but
they're,
They're attention getters.
attention drawing,
They're attention getters.
yeah.
they're attention getters, but they are contagious. That's the word I was looking for. They're contagious. If my neighbor who's in business gets 3 of them, then I'm
Everybody
four
wants
of
it.
them, and the guy next time wants 6 of them across the street. And
And the last time we dealt with this a couple of years ago, you know, the example was, do you really want to go down Maddox Boulevard and see nothing but flood? These,
Yeah, I don't think you'll ever have to worry about it to that extent, but would they take the place of a sign?
good.
I mean, could you say if you had feather flags, then you gotta do it over the sign, you gotta have one or the other?
No, I mean, it's feather flag, they go back with a regular flag with, on a pole or the traditional, you know, that you stick up.
Well, I guess they're kind of up in the air, they kind of use these
Right.
around the buildings so people move ground level.
Or mounted, a pole, a building mounted pole,
Mm-hmm.
or just mounting the flag on the building itself is, you see.
Now, most of them have gone back and got a flag, they just put the flag out and remember the flag on the flagpole.
Now, are we gonna have a definition for feather flag? You know, cause like I said, I'm looking at the one that I have and it doesn't say it's a,
Feather flag, right.
says it mine's a commercial banner. So I'm not, you know, so,
Right.
We could come up with a definition.
you know,
Which like now, like
Yeah.
when you got, and it's
Yeah.
probably now all the business picked up on, a couple of them, they got the smaller size, like 3 size smaller, if you notice them, on the poles now, out in front of the businesses. Chicks or Depot Road, each side of their fence they have them, door open,
just trying to think. Who's on,
huh,
who's on depot?
Iron Pony?
Oh, okay. Okay, I'll stand depot this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, if we say that's a feather flag,
Pension Depot, yeah.
Oh, yeah, like I said, mine looks a little different, but
well,
yeah. But it's
essentially,
kinda,
conceptually, that's a feather flag.
Yeah.
And I say,
so,
A lot of them are that shape, but there are others. There are some that,
Yeah, it's-
similar but different shapes.
yeah, yeah.
The
some
thing
are
is, we
strut,
get to the
some are
larger
vertical.
ones is they're up and they're waving, they're in night traffic and they're.
I think they're used to be closer to the road so you can see them better. Just
And there, well, there's, I think I said this last time we addressed this, but walking down Maddox Boulevard, a lot of them come in a ground socket that you push in the ground in a direct vertical socket. The socket stays there, you just pull the flag every day, put it back in the socket. Those things stick about that far above the ground. I didn't know what they were, when we were walking over the winter, and then summer, I saw, oh, that's what they do, they hold these flags. And they were right at, next to the road on Maddox Boulevard. They're not on permanent flagpoles and they're not mounted to the building. The vast majority of them.
My personal feeling is there's enough opportunities for signage that you really don't need them.
We've had
Now,
one,
that's the extreme, I'm sure.
we've had one
The
business owner
the liberal
say,
side, let's see.
we've had one business owner said he was gonna mount that particular flag in concrete and it'll be a permanent flagpole.
So you got a feather flag that's mounted, and I don't consider that a permanent flagpole.
And it wouldn't exceed the number of signs that you already had.
Well, they both, in this business we're talking about, both of them have commercial message down
Yes.
Mine's actually mounted to a pole that we take in and out.
there, so it's not permanent.
But yours just says open too.
Yeah, that's it.
Open signs are allowed, or open flags are allowed within, what, 15 square feet?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I don't know if the square footage is on mine.
Oh, we,
Probably, less than probably 5, I imagine.
Probably.
we can come up with a definition, a generic definition for these. But our idea was to just, in order to eliminate any ambiguity with these things, was just to say no. And give them a generic definition and say they're not allowed.
You know, I'm really not that opposed to them, if they're gonna replace the signage on the, if the people wanna use those as their focal point in their signage to draw people, as long as they follow the rules and stay X amount of feet back. I mean, I know what you said, with the piece sticking up could be a hazard, or something they could use to cover them, or what, but, I mean,
But you would be opposed to if they had their limit on signing, which
Yes.
is 2 signs, total 100 square feet,
Yeah.
yes.
and flags with commercial messages.
Mhm.
So one or the other.
Yes.
So right now, the feather flags are in addition to the other signage.
You like
Yeah.
two flags, yeah.
In addition to the 2 flags, or that's counted?
No,
as-
no, two signage, you got two
Okay.
signage and flags.
But really, right now, if they're not attached to the building on a flag, or on a permanent flagpole, they're not allowed, correct?
Correct.
So the way the sign ordinance is written now, correct me if I'm wrong, if the flags are not attached to a permanent flagpole or mounted on the building, then they're not allowed. Is that correct?
Is that basically because of the height of a regular flag would need to be in a more permanent?
Signs, flags. Should be on the flag somewhere. Flags, banners.
Here's the prohibited.
Yeah, good to jump to, put flags in there.
Which one?
Maybe get commercial issues.
Two flags displaying commercial message with a maximum area of 15 square feet should be permitted for any business. Flag must be mounted securely to the wall from a permanent flagpole. That
Can those flags be
in
attached to a
addition
permanent
the-
flagpole?
What's that?
Can those flags be attached to a permanent flagpole?
I guess if you buy them that way.
So that's in addition to the allowed signs.
See, but
Yeah.
like a pole.
Yeah, there's a flex, like a flex pole. with
No,
a
mine's
fiberglass
actually steel.
Steel.
Yeah.
Well, yours is not really a feather flag.
Yeah, well, that's what I was looking earlier,
Yeah.
the description of it.
Does
It
it
was
show what the square footage of the ones like you have, or?
Well, see, but mine's kind of like the shape of a feather. It's not, it's kind of
I got you.
round, you know, so.
They have one at the museum as well, a feather flag.
But mine said it was 8.5 feet, but that's, it can be done.
That'll give you a better size, probably.
So right now, technically, feather flags are not allowed if they're not attached to the building or if they are not mounted to a permanent flagpole.
Well, maybe we kind of just put in there, if there's a way to fasten them to a permanent flagpole, then yes, you can have it.
Well, that's what it says right now. If you mount it to a permanent flagpole, you can have it, or to the
As
building.
long as it follows all the other criteria, being set back and two.
So- Right now, the if you go out and plant a feather flag in the front yard,
That's
it's
not
not
allowed.
allowed. Correct. Because it's not
That's not
mounted to the
allowed.
building and it's not on a permanent flagpole. But since we have some business owners that are saying this doesn't apply and it's ambiguous and it's not clear enough, our thought was to just say up in the prohibited signs that feather flags aren't allowed. Because they technically aren't. Not the way everybody's using them, let's put it that way.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm really not opposed to them if they wanna use a permanent flagpole and fasten them to somehow. I mean, you consider a permanent flagpole something that's in concrete, is that kind of what we use as a definition?
I think everybody understands what it is, mounted in the ground.
Yeah. I mean,
I think there was some discussion last time about the true definition of the permanent flagpole as well.
There was. It's something that, I mean, and this again is a little ambiguous, something that can't be easily removed.
yeah,
I mean, you can walk back to the feather flag and just pick it up.
it's gotta be something that Mark can interpret, you know what I mean, say, this is, yeah, this is good, and this is not good, you know?
I mean, is a 10-foot 4x4 in concrete, is that considered
Flagpole.
More of a concrete flagpole.
You can't get much more permanent than putting it in concrete.
I got two of them in my
I mean,
front
it's
yard,
there.
they're in concrete.
You're
I
not
don't know
gonna
what it's
pick
gonna
it
look
up.
like in a few years, but it's there,
You're not gonna pick it up in the house.
no.
And correct me if I'm wrong, did we say that feather flags don't factor into the total signage allocation? That's actually probably the biggest thing that bothers me about it.
Should.
Or
is-
they could take the place of the two
Yeah.
flags.
Yeah,
I mean, and not
Yeah.
exceed the square footage and not exceed a certain height,
yeah.
certain size of the flag, I can
Yeah.
see, because that looks like, what you showed me a while ago is all different sizes. It looked like,
The size of the flag should be included in the total
yeah,
allowed
Well, as I
footage.
said, right now, they're not allowed. Feather flags are not allowed in any shape or form, commercial message or size or anything right now, because they have to either be mounted to the building or be on a permanent flagpole.
yeah.
So
No,
just
that
going
makes
out-
sense.
Going out and planting one in the ground,
Yeah.
like Mark, going out and planting one in the ground is not allowed.
Mhm.
But we have some people reading this saying it's ambiguous. So as I said, our thought was to just create a definition for these flags and put them under the prohibited sign, section. It wouldn't change anything basically from what you have in there. It would make it clearer and easier to explain to folks.
Well, we can make the recommendation to the ordinance committee to change that, or we can make the recommendation to ourselves to make a change in the verbiage. Or would an interpretation voiced by the planning commission, no, it's just it would have to be enacted by the town council to make it effective.
Well,
Our opinion would not make a difference by itself.
I've seen that before, years ago. We used to ask, the building administrator would come in and ask the opinion, what was your intent when you wrote this policy?
Right.
What was your intent when you wrote this ordinance? And it would use that to help enforce.
But I'm not so sure in today's world.
I don't know what that means if you end up going to court. Who would go to court over one of these things? I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Well, maybe the guy that wants to put it in concrete, you know, honestly, he might.
No, but
we thought the easier, clearer thing to do would just be prohibit them. They're prohibited now, but to add, to create a definition for them and add that to a prohibited sign,
prohibited, or just the, not have it
Any
attached to a
flag-
permanent flagpole?
Any flag not attached to a building
Mhm.
or a permanent flagpole is not allowed.
I mean, that's why, I would-
And then only 2 of those.
yeah, that's why I would say that if it's attached to some type of permanent flagpole, then,
I mean, if you wanna.
yeah, if you
pour
want to
the
put them there,
concrete-
and if they're there, that's where they're always gonna be at. Instead of having a regular flag, as long as it don't exceed square footage, as long as it's not 12 foot tall, 3 foot wide.
It meets all the requirements.
Yeah, as long as it meets all the requirements, and it's using your 2 flags, and you just choose to use those instead of a regular flag,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I really don't have a problem with it.
If you issue a non-compliance letter to these individuals now, what's the avenue that?
Well, the avenue is that, first we sent out a letter from the last meeting, just stating what we're gonna do. Most of them have complied, most 90%. If they issue a violation, then, usually give 2 weeks to correct it, not, then I go to the court system and take it to court, and then have to
Yeah.
explain to the judge, but I need a clear pathway to explain it. So then you get the definition of public flag.
I mean, again, they're not permitted now.
Just for the simple fact that they're not on a permanent flagpole.
Not on permanent flagpole, not as they're
I mean,
used.
are they permitted on a permanent flagpole right now?
Yes.
Is it written,
Well, no,
is it written that it's
Yeah,
a
so
covered
it's-
flag?
no, I don't say public flag is.
It says specifically, commercial flags, 2 flags displaying a commercial message with a maximum area of 15 square feet shall be permitted for any business. Flags must be mounted securely to a wall or from a permanent flagpole.
Mhm. So
So,
if you took one that was less than 15 square feet, and it was, for
Put down in
advertising the
concrete,
message,
you're
it
good
should
to
take in concrete and a pole, with a pole.
but the problem is the way people are using them doesn't comply with the ordinance. And
Well,
they're
they have to
saying the
comply.
ordinance is ambiguous because we're calling this a permanent flagpole, even if they pick them up and carry them indoors every night.
Mhm.
So, because they're saying it's ambiguous, when we sent out the letter, we sent don't apply because that's not what your ordinance says. Well, that is what the
Let me
ordinance
ask you
says.
one question about a permanent flagpole then. If you got concrete and you got a base with a cylinder in it, sliding that pole in is not considered a permanent flagpole? I mean, it's in concrete.
You're removing the pole
But
every
you
night
can,
and
but you
taking
can
it
remove, you
inside,
can remove the pole.
then it's not permanent. You're removing the pole every night and carrying it inside.
I mean,
How can it be
but
permanent?
it's in a permanent fixture
Well,
when
the
it's, when
base
it's
is
set.
permanent, but the pole is not. It's just like taking that 20-foot flagpole out, and
Well,
picking it up, putting it
I
in the
think
garage.
There's probably a lot of flagpoles on the island that are supposedly permanent flagpoles that are stuck in a hole in concrete.
Yeah, but
So
I
they
think
can
it's,
take them up and down for storms and whatnot.
but I think you said, like you said, they're up 90% of the time. They only take them down for maintenance and,
Or bad weather.
or bad weather.
Mhm.
These people pull them up every night, and take
Yeah,
it inside.
yeah. I mean, I could see it as a permanent base. I mean, when you buy them, that's how they come.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
buy with the, piece goes in grain and they, some fold down, you put bolts through them, stand up. You know, if you take them down every night, I don't consider that a permanent.
I guess my problem is this, you got a law on the books. The fact that someone thinks it's ambiguous,
So I guess.
that could apply to any law we have on the books.
Yeah, so I guess we just go ahead and try it, see what it goes. But if the court don't have enough information to go with, then we might change it.
My thought was that if you make it less ambiguous by just disallowing them, we won't have any more problems with anybody saying it's ambiguous, I'm gonna keep them up. And the problem is when you have 3 or 4 that say the law's ambiguous, I'm gonna keep them up, it emboldens everybody else to say, well, if he's gonna put his up, I'm gonna keep mine up.
I
The next
agree.
thing you got a whole handful of them. Then you're gonna have to make an example out of somebody by taking them to court and defeating it, and then you got to get the word out that now you're gonna get fined and you're gonna go to court and you're gonna lose, and it was, thought was it was just something to say, you know. The intent was to make them illegal, why don't we just say they're illegal?
So what's the difference in the flags that, the open flags that people bring in and out?
They're mounted generally to the wall.
Yeah.
Permanent, though, you're taking the pole in.
But same thing,
Well,
so
it says
that-
mounted to the wall, it doesn't say it has to be permanent, it just says mounted
How bad is it?
securely to the
is
wall.
that just for an open flag?
Yeah.
It says that?
Or you can have a commercial message on it too. It
Yeah.
says,
Okay.
two flags displaying commercial message with a maximum area of 15 square feet, so 3x5. You can have 2 3x5 flags that says, you know, buy ice, buy sodas, whatever.
But those flags can come in and out?
Yeah,
Okay.
they're
I'm
mounted
just-
mounted to the wall, that's what it
Yeah,
says,
yeah.
securely mounted to the wall or on a permanent flagpole.
Okay. There's a lot of gray area there. Yeah.
Well, the big concern is the safety of the flag. Again,
Oh,
back
yeah,
years
yeah.
ago, one or two fell over on Automatics Boulevard. They fell across the sidewalk and they were protruding into the road. And that's where a lot of people started to complain,
Mhm.
right? And that's what the word was, why they were complaining.
Mm-hmm.
And that you could see. You know, if I'm driving down Maddox and a flag falls in front of me, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna pull into the other lane,
Yeah.
you know, right? I mean, you're just gonna do it. And so there is a safety concern. If you went through and permanently mounted some sort of fixture in the ground, where you could put the flag in and take it back out, yeah, lock it in, so it couldn't blow out, no one could pull it out,
Mhm.
you know, basically reasonable steps to go through and make it safe. The,
Then you got a setback and everything.
yeah, setbacks, is, all the other things should apply to a permanent flagpole. And the size of this flag should work into the total calculation, signage calculation. You know?
Mhm.
You know, I can't say I'm a great fan of the feather flags, but on the other hand, you know, people may feel they serve a purpose for them, and,
They are eye-catching, that's the thing that I,
yeah.
the things that they use to fasten the ground now, I guess, do they screw in? How's yours work?
No, I have mine, I have a telephone pole and I drilled in it and then I,
I didn't know they had something
Put
that
it
you
on.
turned into the pole that
Typically
locked
not.
it in,
I haven't seen
if
that.
that was in concrete or not, because.
Usually
those things
it's
are
just a, piece of tube goes in the plate, have like a little angle bracket on it,
Mhm.
you pull and push it down, and you just pull it in, and
It's a drive-in with a socket.
Yeah.
Can we come to some sort of direction for
so 10 feet back.
agreement on this?
I mean, if we just keep enforcing it like we are, they're illegal to use. So if you allow them 10 feet back from the road, then you're loosening the requirement. So it's whatever you wanna do.
No, it's 15 feet from the road. Isn't it?
Well, no, they're,
10 feet for signs,
About flags,
don't say,
don't say.
not that I've seen. I only read it, but I haven't seen it.
right now, the way it's written and the way we've interpreted it and tried to enforce it is they're not allowed at all.
Yeah.
But would you be able to enforce it if somebody fastened it to a permanent
If
flagpole?
they put it in a permanent flagpole up there,
Then
it's a permanent
then you
flagpole.
go back,
Right.
gotcha.
Don't go,
If you're gonna pick it up, and carry it indoors every night so it's gonna get faded, that's not a permanent flagpole. And they don't pick the flag up, they pick the pole up. Pole and flag, the whole thing goes inside.
Oh, yeah.
You might take your flag in off the permanent flagpole if, you know, pull it down, unsnap it, take it in, but the
Mhm.
pole's still permanent.
Same way if it's a fastening on the house or whatever,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
take American flag, you know, Memorial Day, and then
And there's no reason why they couldn't go through and take a sign in the same shape as a feather flag and fly it on a flagpole, right? I mean, you know, what you put on the flagpole isn't, the shape of that isn't terribly
Yeah.
controlled,
Mhm.
so.
Which if that's the way it is now, I mean, I guess that's okay. If you want them to put it on a permanent flagpole, I can see why, you know. I mean, I'm good with that too. I just don't wanna tell somebody that, you know, hey, you just can't have one completely.
If you challenge the particular
Well, that's already
individual,
Not the feather flag, it's got to be attached to a permanent flagpole. That's what I'm saying, the
yeah,
feather
if
flag's
you tell
not
that
involved.
person that he has to be on a permanent flagpole,
In other words, if they want to put it out there and unclip it at night, then, hey, so be it.
But like I said, the way they're using them now, it's illegal.
But,
Well,
yeah, but that's what I'm saying, you can make it
Guidance.
illegal to use it like that, but if they want to fasten it to a regular flagpole, if they want to use clips or whatever, then you can use it.
Yep.
I'm not, I mean, I'm good with that, I just don't want to tell somebody completely, if they really want to have those, that they can still have them.
Well, you've got a list of probably 20 things, different signs that are not allowed.
I think we still will probably need the definition, because then Mark's gonna have the problem of, all right, how do you measure the square footage of it? Because they're not square.
There's a list on the board of signs which are not allowed.
You can get a pretty good idea.
Oh, yeah, no,
Actually,
You can get a pretty-
the vendor will tell you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can get a
You
pretty
can
good
ask the
idea.
vendor and they'll tell you the square.
Yeah, but I mean, just saying for him to be able, you know, do you
It's gotta be
say,
less than 50 square feet,
yeah,
Some of them got tag on them.
yeah.
yeah, or do we just say, you know what, if it's 16 inches is the widest point, then it's 16, if it's 16 by 10?
that's how you measure it.
Yeah, you know, you don't
The
take, you don't cut the
the
corner.
choice that they have a blank spot, and that's their.
That's what I'm saying, so
Yeah,
we,
actually,
if we're gonna
yeah.
allow it, we need to make life easy for Mark too.
I could
To measure.
calculate, I could calculate the size of the flag.
Yeah.
My bachelor's was in mathematics. I should be able to
Use
do
your
that.
calculus on
I
it.
don't think you're on the town's payroll, but
Well,
The publicizing sign. No.
well, we're not coming with a heck of a lot more
Well,
to you, Mark, or Vic.
yeah, I mean, we are having good conversation
Well,
on
it's
how
kind
to,
of pretty much what you're doing now, I'm
Yeah,
assuming.
pretty much.
I
I
think
mean, it's pretty much what you're doing now, but if somebody's got that to a permanent flagpole and they got the flag out there, you can't go up there and tell them to take it down, pretty much.
but if it's in the ground, it's gotta go.
If it's just in a temporary stick-in pole, that's fine with
Well,
me.
even if somebody like drove a cylinder into the ground, pounded it in, you know, that's still not
Mhm.
a safe.
I did that years ago. I used to have tons of checkered flags down the road, and I put conduit, you know, metal conduit in the ground, and that still didn't hold up good. I had flags going this way and that way, and
Yeah, it's gotta be in concrete.
that's why I
Okay.
pulled them up, because I mean, they look like crap.
Not
After a
okay,
while.
but okay. Item number 4, vacation cottages.
Vacation cottages, so in our ordinance, we got, vacation cottages was pushing back down to tourist home cottages and vacation cottages. None of them really give us a definition on, far as, so if you're in, let's say you're in an R3 district, you got 10.5 for your first use, 3,000 for your next use. So, and a tourist home and cottage is permitted by right. So you can build you a vacation cottage, but it don't give me no direction on size, setbacks. So can you build 500 square feet, 800 square feet, 2,400 square feet? You know, you could have a main building at 1,000 square foot and build your cottage at 2,000 square feet.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they should exceed
We have
per
no
cottage.
direction on that.
And I think we currently have some applications in for just that instance that Mark just described.
Mhm. Yeah, I think we should have a minimum size and square footage, maybe a minimum height.
And
Yeah.
and to meet all building
You know,
requirements.
And they gotta meet all the setbacks.
And do setbacks from the main dwelling?
Yep,
You shouldn't put a
You know,
setback, you
each
should
setback.
put somebody 5 foot from the property line.
it's not an accessory building.
No,
It
it's not
should
an
not be
accessory building,
considered
they should have to follow all the regular
Because it's a
setbacks.
vacation cottage, and a vacation cottage says the vacation cottage should not be considered a resident dwelling.
Nope.
So then really you can't use real setbacks from resident dwelling because it's,
But if you said it's not an accessory building,
well, it's accessory to the main use, but it's still vacation cottage.
you need the verbiage that says a vacation cottage shall meet all the requirements of the main structure.
Well, we need something that says vacation cottages, we got to put something on area on them, heights on them, distance from the main dwelling, and setbacks.
Yeah, I think you can see the recent projects.
Oh, yeah.
that have been, constructed, it's kind of wild, wild west with vacation cottages, and what we're talking about is maybe setting some guidelines for vacation cottages so they're more organized and a little bit more appropriate for zoning.
I mean, the only thing we have in the code that helps us a little bit is that they can't be, rented for no more than 30 days. And you can get that put in deed, I guess, but then again, that's gonna be real hard to enforce, you know. And then years down the road, if we got two big houses on the same lot, and then they go want to split them, then you got two dwelling units that you got to deal with somewhere.
It's not unforeseeable that vacation cottages are built in such a way, and when you get the permit, you build them as vacation cottage, and a few years down the road, you start talking about vacating the line and making them single-family dwellings, in which they don't conform, you know, with what you did before, so it,
Are the units down at the south end considered vacation cottages, or
No, they are in a campground.
they're considered campground units?
Yeah.
both of those developments are.
Both of those campgrounds.
But again, you could pick one of them up and put it in your backyard, and
Yes.
essentially you're in business.
What we're seeing more and more in the office is that folks are, especially with the advent of these new rental agencies, online rental agencies like Vrbo, Airbnb, things like that, people are renting just about anything they can get their hands on.
Yeah.
Lucas and Mark shut down a couple of sheds here in the last few weeks. Trying to rent out.
Oh, no.
You know, and it's gonna unfortunately require us to tighten up a little bit as
Yeah.
far as regulation.
Well, when somebody calls, you know, and you give them, ask about a vacation cottage, and they put one in their yard and stuff, I don't have a whole lot of information to
Provide.
apply,
Guidance.
because, you know, how big can I build it? Well, it really don't tell me. You know,
Yeah, you're
so
right.
I think we need some type of guidance on there, you know, what size it can be, and
You're gonna have a busy month to get back to us with this.
Cape Charles went through this about a year ago, and so they, it may be a good place to go through. and take
okay,
a look.
I'll contact them and see what, if they develop something like that.
Doesn't septic help control any of this, though?
What, the only thing that controls is bedrooms. So I could still have a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom house and 2,000 square foot area.
And with the advent of alternative systems, you know,
I just don't know if you
a lot
want,
more available.
if we don't come out one where we want the vacation cottages bigger than our main structures.
No, you don't.
But going back to Steve's point, with the potential advent of centralized sewer, I
You're
think
right.
it does need to be more
Yeah.
global. That was my concern with,
That's the other side, you know,
Well,
the
yeah.
septic and water, so forth and
Right.
so on, requirements.
And in general, that's the thing that was been scary, for many years. I went on the planning commission in 1987. And after my first meeting, my father asked me, "So how'd the meeting go?" I said, "Fine." I told him they needed central sewage. He said, "You're an idiot." He said, "That's the only thing that keeps this place from looking like Little Saigon,
That's right.
is sewage permits." Well, if you're going to get central sewage, it behooves you to have a very good zoning ordinance. You know, to make sure that the things stay in check and don't get away from it.
35 years ago, I made an application down the county for a 12 by 16-foot building. And the young lady said, "Well, you're gonna dwell in that?" I said, "No, it's a shed." But, you know, that was not unthinkable.
Especially this day and time with tiny homes and stuff, everything is going
yeah,
smaller.
Minimalistic and stuff.
But you're right, we probably need to tighten up a little bit on zoning. The central sewer's gonna come here at some point, you know, so. And then all those drain fields are gone, like my backyard's drain field, my neighbors and mine, and I can't
just
do
think the
nothing.
good part
anymore.
is someplace, you know, to elaborate on our cottages on size, footprint, distance from the
I
dwellings
agree.
and the property lines.
And distance between each other,
Yes.
because I don't like seeing these cottages with no egress to them.
No, because
Yeah.
see, and by building code, I can only really make them do, if they're built on the same lot, I can do a imaginary line in between both of them and get 5 foot on each side. It's only 10 foot. 10 foot's not.
No.
And actually, they go closer to that, they won't put firewalls inside of them.
Which is, Key West Cottages had to put sprinkler
They put
systems in.
sprinkler systems in.
That was an issue over Marsh Island with homes being so close. When we had that fire some years ago.
Folks,
You couldn't get back to the back. It was so tight.
The agenda, that we're kind of giving you several months worth of stuff all at once.
I just
See
was,
this? I can see this.
It's gonna be busy.
We've been
All
making,
right.
we've been making lists for several weeks.
Okay, item number 5, discussion on the RCs, RS, recreation and conservation zoning. I think you guys had flashed up, one of the possibilities or that we could look at in the area adjacent to the bridge leading to Assateague.
This is the Aztec Bridge in the center here. You can see in what we did, most recently, is we made this area, just southeast of, East Side Drive.
Right.
It was a combination of R3 and C2, C1, and is now RC district. So the comment was made at the time that there's plenty more opportunities to make some corrections like this that would probably help. I will say this, in the instance of this area that we just got through council, you will see that it's divided into lots, each owned privately. If the majority, and I mean vast majority of the owners of these lots were not in favor of what we did, it would have been a much more difficult sell.
Yeah.
Now if you take a piece of Marsh Lake right here, where it's not individually owned, that's easy to zone. We really don't have any say over it, but it's in our area, so we can go ahead and zone it pretty much anything we want. Nobody, I think, is going to speak against it in a public hearing. But just looking around the island, there are lots of other opportunities to do this. One of the areas that we were just looking at the other day, and it was brought up, is this red area, which is resort commercial.
Yep, C4.
C4 resort commercial, and you can see this is all southeast of the museum and McDonald's, and goes all the way back up to Eel Creek, back up here along Maddox. This is privately owned, by the way. It's only one owner, but it's privately owned. We all know the difficulties it is to build anything of substance on a marsh, but still, the tendency there is to protect it as much as possible.
I think that's really the emphasis behind the initiative to do this, is to protect what exists. And not to take away rights of people to develop or do the things they'd like to do. But these are pristine areas from the standpoint of, once you touch it, you'll never ever get it back again.
One of the owners for the piece on the east side, which we just did, while he didn't oppose it, did bring up the issue that's going to come up at some point, is that you're taking my property because you're declaring it nothing to be built there or unusable. You're taking my property, and it's eventually you'll run into somebody who wants to push that.
But I think there are the challenges you have to face. You have to go into it from a standpoint of what's the right thing to do, not today, but for the future of that piece of ground, that area. And Like I say, if you don't do it now, it's gonna be too late after somebody develops and tries to.
And from a functional point of view, I think if an area is zoned, and correct me, disagree with me if you want, if an area is zoned commercial or residential, it's incumbent upon the town to be able to go through and provide infrastructure services to those areas. So you have to provide roads that are going to be passable during reasonable conditions, utilities and everything else. And if that's not something that's feasible, then the zoning was probably misapplied.
I'm with that. So again, I think the reason we bring it up, correct me if I'm wrong. The reason we bring it up is to start looking at other areas that you may
Yeah.
want to incorporate into the RC zone. And as you know, one of the things we did with RC, at the last public hearing that we had was we basically eliminated any structures that allowed in that zone. So you have to be cognizant of that. It's basically no structures allowed in RC zone now, which before was marinas, facilities for marinas, hunting clubs, I think seafood facilities, that sort of thing. There may be one or two others that were allowed by right within that zone.
And I think the question that was brought up from the last meetings and some council meetings, that we want to look at some of this marshland that is zoned, that's not in the RC zone, that's not usable, to try to look at them first, that's,
Not just peripheral marsh, but interior marsh areas,
yeah,
Both fresh and salt.
yeah.
wetlands.
Now, what can you build in the RC?
Just piers, going back to a thing, I think something real light, no houses on top of piers or no structures.
Basically, we took out any structure that was allowed, so anything above the level of the marsh is pretty much out of the zone. And you can look at the zoning map, by the way, in case you didn't know, it's on the website. If you go down to quick links down at the bottom, the zoning
Yeah.
map is on there, so that's the easiest way. That's the way I just pulled it up, it's the easiest way for us to get it. And it's a very good map, very easy to understand, so. Again, I don't think we're ready to do anything tonight, but
No, I spoke to Mark about it from the standpoint, after the joint hearing and then the comments that were made by even council personnel, that I think it's appropriate that we start looking at. Besides, we will be addressing those types of issues over the next 18, 19 months for our comprehensive plan. We use that as initiative.
and I think there's probably some low hanging fruit here that's easy to take care of, like I said, that's not individually cut up in lots, that you don't have to deal with 25 owners, that you could take care of pretty quickly and easily.
Should we have some sort of guidelines so people don't think, oh, you're picking on my land? Did you know some people's gonna say that?
Well, I think the first thing you would do is take properties that all properties that you'd like to see placed in that zone and inventory them. And then look at them carefully to see how they're owned,
Ownership.
who buy, and what the potential is there to do anything with them. Like I said, you all know the one we just did, I think there was 10, 12 owners.
Yeah, there's that.
10, 12 owners, and they were all pretty much in agreement with what we were doing, so it was fairly simple to do. One person, I think, that didn't completely agree with it, didn't oppose it, but did bring up the fact that at some point somebody's going to scream that you're taking my property.
I agree with everything you said, or the point that I most agree with was the last point that you made, was assessing the usability of the property. If it requires significant engineering and resources, And both town and private resources to go through and do something with that property. You really have to ask the question, why are we allowing this? You know, again, I go back to the thing, if the town can't build a road and put in water and to the property,
Well, and as you know, Bob, if it's gonna be a subdivision of sorts, we'd make the developer put in roads. So that's another hurdle that the
yeah,
developer has.
that's true. Good point. Good point. Yeah, well,
No, I think your idea of coming up with a listing, as you said, the inventory, is appropriate. And then that way we'd have the ability to further define it, bring it down into workable parts. Okay. Item number 6, review of the comp plan. Once again, guys, if you have ideas that within the existing comp plan that we should be looking at from the standpoint of areas that need to be revisited, I wish you'd bring them to the attention of the other members of our commission here. We still have a little time, but not much. And that time's gonna go quick. You know, I can't believe it's September of 2023 already. So we've got a little over a year and a half to come up with some resolution to address the 2025 revisit. Okay? Commission members' comments, announcements?
I'm good.
You good?
You good?
I'm good.
I'll miss the next meeting.
We'll
That's
put a lot of stuff
unacceptable.
on there.
I'll come back.
It's unacceptable.
I'll come back to that.
Says Steve.
I would like to compliment Mark and I guess Mike on the permit fee report that was presented to council.
It's all Mark.
Does give you a sense of what's going on the island, if you have a chance, take a look at it. There's a lot more activity than folks would think, and it's great. It's great. The fact that those things are happening, but by the same token, it's scary sometimes. You know, I can't imagine what your mornings must be like. Although I see you out there all the time, and I know your afternoons are a challenge. So. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So moved.